let's just try to run simple project in the Hibernate and then try to understand what is Hibernate. Okay, so now it will come here basically, and then I bet is. So first of all, let's start to understand with the JPA. What is JPA? JPA means Java Persistence API. So as we see, like there was Hibernate, there was JDBC, right? So JDBC is Java Database Connectivity. So this was a standard. Okay, standard means there is an API. JDBC is an API, and all this company, whoever is giving us a driver, those companies are implementing those interfaces and classes, and we are using MySQL driver to connect to the MySQL database. For Oracle, we are using MySQL Oracle driver. So those driver we are using, and those drivers are basically implementing JDBC API. So JDBC is a standard basically, and JPA is also a standard in ORM. Okay, so we need to understand word ORM. ORM means object relational mapping. So now JPA, under JPA you can have like different companies. Okay, let's say Hibernate, Hibernate. Okay, so these companies are basically providing the implementation of JPA, Java Persistence API, and then giving us a facility to insert the object in the database directly. So what exactly we are learning now, that in JDBC, what was the problem? In the JDBC, okay, so now first we need to understand this thing also. JDBC versus Hibernate. So there are lots of debates are going on every day in it, wherever you go, wherever you are using Hibernate. So you will always compare with JDBC. Sometimes, yeah, you can directly compare head to head also, like whenever it comes to the choice that whether I need to go with diabetes or Hibernate. But obviously, it's a discussion is around always here JDBC versus Hibernate. Why we should Hibernate first of all? Why should we use ORM, object relational mapping? So, in nutshell, in a conclusion, what we are doing that we are inserting the object in the database. Okay, so let's say if I have any application, okay, and then this is the database. And you basically like in between, okay, so in between there is something, okay, framework ORM. Okay, so here you are giving from your application code, you are using the ORM framework like Hibernate. You give an object and it will basically insert the record. So you ultimately, if you don't look at this one, then you are dealing directly with the objects. Object means, let's say I want to insert registration data inside into the database, then you will insert registration object in the database. So you're dealing with the object. The main important part, what we are learning here is that you are inserting the object in the database, you are getting the object back. So that is called ORM. So now Hibernate is written on top of JDBC. Okay. So now if you look at the flow, so if any typical application, let's say this is client, then you sending a request, or even standalone application. Okay. So let's say if there is no client server application, right now we are doing standalone application. So now this application, then basically we have, so far what we have been doing, let's just forget this for now. So for now, what we are doing, we are inserting a record, we are using JDBC. Okay, so here we are using JDBC. JDBC means we are making a connection. Okay, connection object, we are doing connection.prepare statement, statement.execute query, and then data is coming here. So let's say if I have a registration page here, you will send the data here to the server side. Let's say this is servlet, because now we are in servlet mode. So if you're coming in the servlet 2, basically you connect to the database and insert the record in the table. Okay, so now what we are going to do here, you are going to do request.get parameter and get all the values, and then create prepared statement. In the prepared statement, you are basically putting like all this long list, and then you have to remember the syntax of the JDBC and all those stuff. Basically, we are going to basically take care here. Right now, let's say you are using MySQL. let's say tomorrow you're going to use Oracle because of the licensing reason or any other reason. So in that case, what is going to happen that you have to change the code. Why? Because MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, MS SQL, all the database has some syntax different. So if some syntax are different, then you have to start changing your code. Okay, I'm just telling you one disadvantage, okay, of the JDBC, that if you're using directly JDBC, then you have to start making changes here in the code. And then at the end of the day, it's a maintenance, okay, like productivity of the developer, that you have to basically migration is not easy. Now, what Hibernate is going to do, like ORM, basically in general, not Hibernate, but ORM or JPA, you can say whatever. So now instead of calling directly here, you will basically open this line and then this will call here. Ultimately, this is using JDBC only, okay? ORM is basically doing JDBC only. There, in this world, in Java world, there is nothing else, okay? To connect to the database and insert the record in the database, other than JDBC, there is nothing. So at the end of the day, if you don't know JDBC, you cannot work with Hibernate. Hibernate is written on top of JDBC. It's a wrapper. So you will, instead of basically creating a query by yourself, you will basically just give an object. Okay, let's say I want to insert the registration object. Okay, so I have one registration object called R example. So you will basically write down a code, let's say session dot save, and you will pass the object R, and then this will give to the ORM. Now this object, now ORM, this framework will decide that how I'm going to create a prepared statement. So behind the scene, this framework will generate a prepared statement for you. Okay, if you make a connectivity to the database, maintain the transaction, there are so many things. Whatever you've been doing by yourself, everything will be done by the framework. So framework will basically does all the activities what we have been doing so far. So at the end of the day, we are not going to write much code. We are going to push our responsibility towards the framework. Now ORM basically insert the record in the database. Okay, makes sense. So now let's try to understand a couple of things here. Let's say if I'm giving this framework, okay, let's say I have employee class. Okay, let's say there is one class called employee. First, let's understand in theory, and then we'll look at one example. I have some properties here. In this property, let's say I have, let's say ID. Okay, for first of all, integer or long ID. Most of the time, long we are using. Then string, let's say f name, string l name, integer age, integer salary. Okay, so let's say I have so many fields. Okay, in employee class. Okay, in my database, I have table. Okay, and my table name is basically, let's say, employee underscore data or anything. Okay, I can give any name. And this is my class, Java class, and this is my table. And my table has those fields. Okay, instead of f name, maybe let's say there's a first name. Okay, name could be also different. Okay, last name. Okay, age, salary. Okay, all these table columns are there. So now, first of all, we need to understand what is entity now. Okay, so what is entity? So whenever you are in Hibernate, okay, so we need to give a mapping. Mapping means if you are giving the employee object to framework, let's say E object, you create an employee object, like let's say employee E is equal to new employee. Okay, and then you set all E dot set first name, last name, middle name, age, everything, all the properties you're setting, and you give this employee object to ORM to insert the record in the database. Now, how Hibernate will come to know that, okay, where do I need to insert the record? If you give the object, imagine, let's say I'm giving you the object, and I will tell you, okay, insert the object in the database. At the end of the day, you are going to use JDBC. But how? And that is the reason that you have to give a mapping. And that is why it's called ORM, object relational mapping. Object relational mapping means you are giving a mapping between table and class. Okay, so table and class, that is called object relational mapping. That this mapping will help Hibernate to create a query. Simple. So now how you are going to give a mapping? There are two ways, okay? Either XML or annotation. Simple. But we are not going to go XML way. That is nobody is using nowadays. So we are always using annotation way. So this is entity. What is entity? The class which is representing the database table. Okay, the simple definition of entity is the class which representing the table in the database. So now entity, and then you have some of the, let's say, table, and then you say, let's say, my name, table name is equal to employee underscore data, employee underscore data. Then all the columns, okay, you say, let's say this is ID, at the rate ID, at the rate column. Okay, so all these annotations, I will show you this. It's there if you want to open your code. If you have imported the code, open the registration.java and then see, like now start mapping with my explanation. So you can see here that ID column, and if this is a common column name from property name is different, then you can give a names, other name. Ultimately, you are giving all the mapping in this class, which represent the complete table. Simple. Then what Hibernate will do, if you tell Hibernate, hey, insert the employee object in the database, Hibernate has all this mapping. It will create a prepared statement here. It knows, okay, which database I need to connect. Okay, it's MySQL. Okay, it will create a query according to MySQL. Okay, I need to, okay, which database, my MS SQL. Okay, I'll generate the query for MS SQL. Okay, Oracle, I will generate the query for Oracle. So here in this layer, behind the scene, everything is happening. You don't need to worry. Okay, so this ORM will generate a query according to your requirement. You just need to give a configuration. Configuration means how I need to connect to database. Okay, which database I'm using. Okay, all those things. So for this, we are giving some configuration. And for that's why we are basically having hibernate.cfg.xml file and that configuration file. Okay, so that configuration file name is hibernate.cfg.xml file. That source, mainly source is what are the files you're finding. That is this file that you are giving, telling the Hibernate ORM framework that this is my mapping, this is my information, how we are going to work based on my requirement. So a couple of concepts here. Here that session factory. Now we are very, very specific to Hibernate. Session factory is basically kind of, okay, it's not same, okay, but you can for now compare with connections. Connection object, okay, connection object in JDBC. Session you can compare with the statement. It's not same, okay. I'm just trying to make your journey easy. Okay, so now session factory is a factory design pattern. Okay, again, if you have not learned this design pattern, please read it. It's very easy. It's just Java code, but it's a pattern. Factory of session. Session factory means factory of session. Session factory is heavyweight object, and this is low weight object. So now instead of connection, we are going to use session factory. Instead of statement, we are going to use session in the Hibernate. Okay, in Hibernate, there are methods to insert the records. Session.save, save or update. There are many methods, but I'm just writing few methods. Okay, so delete. Then you have get, load. Okay, so ultimately all CRUD operations are in terms of the method name. So you are just going to call session.save, session.save or update, session.delete, session.get, session.load, and then you will basically do all your operations. Basically, in this world, there are only 4 operations, right? Create, read, delete, update, and delete. Okay, so all four, 5 operations, whatever we are going to do, those are basically, now you're not going to bother by yourself that writing, creating a queries on all those stuff. Okay, so now let's look at some of the advantage and disadvantage of Hibernate. Okay, so JPA is a standard Java persistence API. Then ORM tool, you can see here Java, object, ORM, and then basically database. Okay, so what are the advantage of the Hibernate? Open source and lightweight. So Hibernate is an open source framework. There is no license cost, basically. Open source means there is no license cost. So that's why it is very popular. It's basically a lot of people are contributing to the Hibernate project too. Fast performance. Okay, so obviously, like there is nothing faster than JDBC. Okay, there is nothing faster than directly using JDBC. If you're using row, JDBC is a row. If you're using row, that means that is faster. But the amount of work Hibernate is doing for us, and those work, if you are trying to do it by yourself, compared to that, Hibernate is faster. Let's say creating an object, giving an object or retrieval of an object, convert the grid and query and firing it. There are lots of activities that are happening behind the scene. So if you are comparing those activities, and in that terms, Hibernate is faster. On top of that, there are some caching, some smart implementations are there. First level cache, second level cache. So different kind of caching mechanisms are there. So that we can cache the data, so it actually doesn't go to the database, and then it doesn't have a network hit basically over the network, and then it will basically give us data in a faster manner. Database independent queries, as I mentioned that we are going to like have less dependencies on the syntax of the SQL. So there is a SQL query, hybrid query language, that basically you are firing with respect to class name, not with respect to database table name. So let's say if I want to get select star from employee underscore data, so you can replace that with the select like star from employee class. Okay, so basically you are not going to fire a query against the database table name, but you are firing a query against the class name, entity name basically. Okay, automatic table creation. So we'll see the example that Hibernate is helping us. We are not using that in the production. However, we are at the time of the development, quick development, we are basically just making a classes. We are not making database table at all. We are just basically creating a classes and then start our application. So Hibernate will create tables automatically in the database. So again, less work. Then simplifies the join. Okay, so there are lots of joins. Let's say if you are trying to do it by yourself, it's not easy to write queries and then lots of complex queries, but Hibernate will simplifies those joins for us. Query statistics and database status. Obviously, like Hibernate is basically developed to help developers in terms of the performance monitoring. So there are some of the statistics that some of the caching mechanism, how much time you're going to save. Some of the queries are longer running queries. So those statistics of the database status, all those things basically will be provided by Hibernate. So these are the advantage on Google also. Basically, if you search another thing, JDBC versus Hibernate, go to images. Okay, we'll find a lot of comparisons. Okay, so just read those couple of, okay, what exactly different people are writing here. So that might help us. Okay, so if you read some of them, so just try to read the advantage and just compare it. Okay, I think it's not loading right now, but let's see. Okay, just go through some of the images. Okay, for the comparison. If somebody asks, another important item is uh, sometimes people might ask you what is the disadvantage of Hibernate. Okay, so always you prepared. Okay, so we always prepare that advantages, but you need to prepare for disadvantage for the interview perspective. So here they were given some of the Hibernate automatically generates the queries. JDBC maps the Java class. Okay, so with JDBC developer has to write the code to map an object models data to a relational data model. Hibernate is flexible, powerful ORM map Java classes to database. This is what I was explaining now. Okay, so this is the same thing basically. Whatever I'm just trying to explain what is Hibernate. So the same thing they have written here. So just read it. List of advantage over JDBC. So these are the advantages. So I would suggest read some of the advantage and disadvantage of the JDBC. Okay, so now let's go back to the project. Okay, so this is the simplified version actually, which I was telling you guys that I have simplified some version like some of the project structure. So I'll put this project also because this has less class and there is less garbage. Okay, in earlier project there was a lot of garbage, so here I have only one file, so I just change it. So I'm not sure I ran it basically, but I'll share this project. Okay, so the same way you can import this project, but this has less garbage. Okay, everything to the point, whatever I'm trying to explain throughout the Hibernate. Okay, so let's just look at one simple examples and then we can close today and then we can continue next week. So I'm why I'm basically doing this week. So at least next week you have some idea like what is Hibernate, and then we can try to finish up. So this is the main file which I was mentioning, that hibernate.cfg.xml file. And here you can see like main Hibernate configuration. Under that you have session factory object. So this is a session factory configuration. So this is a main tag, okay, like session factory, and then these are the properties. So let's look at the properties one by one. These properties you are already aware. Driver class, okay. So whatever the driver class, connection URL we already know. So in your file, once I share this project, you have to change your schema name here, okay. Your schema, whatever the schema name you have, you just replace here, and username password. Right now, whatever the project you have imported in that one also there is files. So in that one also you can do it. But immediately after this, I will share this project. So you can just replace your username password. And this is the dialect. I will come back to dialect. So you don't know this dialect. Other than that, you know. So connection pool, I already mentioned that Apache DBCP pool. So if you have not basically done Apache DBCP pool in the JDBC with respect to connection, because one connection was not sufficient, is not sufficient as a part of the application of any JDBC application. So we need to use the connection pooling. There is a design pattern. So we need more than one connection objects uh, in order to basically maintain the pool of objects. Let's say that 10,000 users are using your application. So one connection is busy, then another person has to wait. So that's why we are basically putting good connection number here. So in Apache DBCP pool, in a JDBC application, you have to maintain that manually, but in Hibernate, it's just a configuration. Internally, it will do it for you. So this is another advantage of Hibernate, that it will helping you out with the connection pooling. It will create more than one connection objects. Then SoSQL, I will show you like what SoSQL meaning here. So that also new property auto commit. If you have completed transition management in JDBC, I don't need to explain what is auto commit. This is a new property that I was explaining, that automatic table creation in Hibernate. So automatically Hibernate will create a table for us. So here there are different properties, different values. Okay, let's say create and drop, create drop. Okay, update. So those are the different values, placeholders basically. So based on that, Hibernate will act and help us. Create drop means when you start application, it will drop all the table and create new. Update means if it will update if whenever it's required. Let's say if we are adding a new property in entity, then it will automatically alter the table in the database. So that is comes under update. So most of the time, like like update is happening frequently, then you use update. Otherwise, create and drop will like you are going to lose your data. Okay, so that's the reason that create and drop is a little risky. Now this is just an encoding. So this is mapping. Mapping means you tell, okay, these are my entities. Okay, so in your application, if you have 10 entities, basically 10 tables, so you have 10 entities which represent the database table, and then you are basically doing the operations. Operations means all the crude operations: create, read, delete, update with respect to those entity, with respect to those database tables. Then you have to define here that you have to tell Hibernate these are my entities, and here you can find mappings. If I tell you to insert the record in registration table, then here is my mapping. So if you open the registration class, you can see like this is my entity. This is my table name, user underscore registration. Then all these are my columns. Okay, so ID column, this first name, last name, middle name, email, secondary email. So all those things are there. Okay, so for now I will just remove a couple of fields. Let's say secondary email. Because I want to add it later in the demo. So let's go back to the configuration first again. Okay, so I don't know what I've changed here. So now I'll come back to dialect. So SQL, okay, these two, and anyways, we are going to learn this all three, four properties. Okay, so but let me just go through the example. Now, I hope that everybody has MySQL or whatever database you want to use. It's up and running. So make sure that you have database instances running. So I'm using this. Let me just drop this table for now, and then we'll see how exactly things working behind the scene. Okay, so now I have one file called Hibernate util. Here I'm just doing the same thing that in the method like build session factory method. I'm basically loading this file. Okay, so ultimately when you write this code, there are on internet you will find different code to load this file. Whenever I'm not giving a file here, basically you can give a file name hibernate.cfg.xml file. But if you don't give any name, if you are not giving any name here, by default it will load hibernate.cfg.xml file. Okay, so you don't need to, if you don't want to mention any file name, then it will load this file in the memory. So main code is starting from here, that I already reuse this method everywhere, that okay, build my session factory. Whenever I start my application, I call this method get session factory. If session factory is null, I'm basically building the session factory one time only. So like only one factory object throughout your application. You don't need more than one session factory object. So that's why it's a heavyweight object. Same like connection. We have done basically in the static block. Even you can write this code in a static block also. That is also work. The same thing. So now it's just compare side by side connections and session factory together. So you can put this in a static block too. And the main code, like to insert the record in the database. So what you need, what are the changes? Okay, let's start again. Pom.xml, all this dependency I already put, okay, for the Hibernate and MySQL. Okay, these are the extra dependency I have to put because in Java 11, some of the JSP libraries they have removed as a part of the Java version itself. So that's why additional libraries I have put. So only two things, mainly Hibernate, we are using 5, version number 5 as a major version. If somebody asks you in the interview which Hibernate version you are using, you should know number 5. Okay, and MySQL, you should know which version you are using. Right now, I think latest is 8032. So if you want, it's okay. This is a minor version. So major version is 8. And these are the dependencies. So first step is to put the dependencies there. Now, then basically you create these configurations. Okay, second step. Then you are basically third step. You are making sure you are basically putting proper entities with respect to database table. Okay, once everything is like this setup is done, then you have to basically start writing a code which will help us to insert the record in the database. So I have basically create one code, insert code here. Okay, so I have segregated here, one for the insertion, one for retrieval. So let's look at the insertion code for now. So you can look at here. I have session factory object. First step is basically to get the session factory. First step is to basically same like in a database application JDBC. You first step is to create connection. Your first step is to create session factory. Then from session factory, you will get the session. Now, this is very simple. There is nothing, no rocket science. You are just creating a registration object. You do basically set all this value. In web application, you are doing request.get parameter. Okay, and then you just set first name, last name, middle name. So now your object is ready. Now you are just doing like if you want to like this is how you can do the transition management in Hibernate. Session.begin transaction, session.commit. Okay, and then in between you do whatever operation you want to do. So now I'm just trying to insert session.save registration. Okay, let's run this. Let's see how it goes. Okay, now let's go to the database. Now you see table has been created. I removed the table. Automatically table has been created. And then one record has been inserted. Okay, so now you see like these queries are printing here. How Hibernate is creating. See, create table, table name. Ultimately it's JDBC only. So you can see like how update insert query. This is prepared statement. Okay, this is printing because we have put this so SQL as true. Okay, so this is creating queries which is suitable to MySQL because we have put dialect, MySQL 8 dialect. So what is the benefit of the dialect? Dialect is the interpreter, converter. Okay, it will basically it will generate the query according to your database. So dialect is the responsibility of that dialect is to generate the queries according to your database. So dialect, so SQL, and because of this one, okay, it has created update means if table does not exist, it will create. But now let's look at the next scenario. Let's say if I'm adding a new column. Okay, let me just go back to registration. Now let me do Control Z. Okay, now I'm adding another column, secondary email. Okay, and I'll just go back and open this for insertion. I just put okay. So now if I run this code again, okay, now you can see like alter table because I changed the entity. So Hibernate will basically do alter table for you. So now if you go in the database, you see secondary email column has already been added, and then data I have inserted. Okay, on top of that, you can put some validation also here, but for now, that's okay. I will show you later. But at least you should know like how to insert the record. We'll see the retrieval part later. But this is how you can insert the record in the database using Hibernate. So you can see like it's make our life very easy. Then insertion part with Hibernate. So this was the example that we created a session factory. Then after the registration object, and we begin the transactions inside begin and end. We have basically used session.save method. So there are different methods for the save or update, get, load. So we are going to see all the methods one by one. That how Hibernate is helping us to do particularly all the CRUD operations. So this was basically we have done last time, how to insert the data in the database. On top of that, we have also covered all these properties as a hibernate.cfg.xml file. So let's quickly look at the retrieval part. Okay, so if you look at this code, right, test registration retrieval.java in your code, you already have this code. So how to retrieve the data from the database using Hibernate. So there are a couple of methods, session.get, session.load. So those are the standard method that you can just call like the session.get, and then you will define that, okay, which object you are expecting out of this data, and then you can define the primary key. So this primary key right now, we are just doing the simple Java code. That's why it's hard coded. Otherwise, this will come from the like UI, or maybe you can directly get all this data like select star from registration. So we'll look at that too. So if you know that you want to retrieve some data from the database and you know the primary key, then basically you can use session.get or session.load. So in this case, let's see what is our primary key in database. I think we have 40 or 41, so I can just put 40, 41. Okay, so what internally it will do, so it will basically fire a query in the database, select star from user underscore registration where primary key, whatever the primary key column. Okay, so in this entity, as we have seen last time, this is the ID column. So it will fire a query where ID is equal to 41. Okay, and then once it will retrieve the records data, then it will get one by one all the columns in the GDBC and create one registration object. So how internally what code it is going to be writing for us, that this code. So Hibernate is basically creating an object for registration. It will get all this value, F name, L name, from the result set of JDBC internally. And then it will give you the registration object, which is full of data with that criteria. Okay, so Hibernate is doing this job for us. And that's why when you basically write this code, session.get, it will basically fire a query, JDBC query internally, get the result set, iterate it, get column one by one, put set those values in the registration object and give it back to us. Okay, so this is session.get. There is another method, session.load. So there is interview question, session.get versus session.load. So just try to find out on the internet and see what is the answer you are getting. So now let's look at this. Once you get this object, okay, so there are we need to understand one thing here. In Hibernate object lifecycle, so there are different type of objects. So first is transient object. So transient object is the object which does not represent any row in the database. Transient object means, let's say, whenever you are trying to insert any record in the database, and then you are creating a new object by in the code registration, a new registration like this. So this object does not represent, like, till the time, even though you are setting all this value, so till the time you are not saving the object, this object is called transient object, because this object does not represent any row from database. Now once you retrieve session.get using session.get or load, this object is called persistent object. So what is the definition of the persistent object? That the object which represent the row of a database, that is called persistent object. Okay, so now let's say once you have persistent object, and if you want to update some data, then you can do like this and call save or update. Okay, so this is update part, how to update the object. Okay, create, read, update, and delete. So delete, for delete session.delete, you can, it's very easy, but main thing is retrieval part, insertion part, and updation. So this is the method for session.save or update. So save or update is helping us to do both the operation. If you're giving the persistent object, it will basically insert the object. If it is if you are giving persistent object, it will update the object. If it is a transient object, it will insert the object in the database. So save or update does both. Okay, save, insert and update both. So most of the time, instead of save method, we are using save or update. Okay, so any question here so far?
Can you explain save or update again, please?
Yeah, so save or update is basically, let's say if you're passing this registration retrieved object, and then when you give this to save or update, it will fire update query in the database. Why? Because this object is already representing the row in the database. That means you are doing update operation. And when you are passing the new object, which is not basically retrieved using Hibernate session, so which does not represent any row in the database, in that case, this method basically use save. Save means insert, because data is not there yet. So obviously we need to insert the data. Any other question, anyone? Any other question? Okay, so now SQL query. This is called Hibernate query language. So that is database independent queries. So you can see here that what are the query we are writing here, that query is with respect to the class, not with respect to database table name. So here you can see here from registration, this is alias, okay, in the database terms. And then here you can put like maybe where condition if you want to put. So you can put like normal SQL query only, but with respect to class, not with respect to database table. This is the syntax. Okay, so sn.create query, you pass this, and then query.list. So this will give you the list of registration object, because there is a possibility that this query might result more than one result, more than one row. Select star from user underscore registration, where you can just, or maybe simple select star from user underscore registration. So you are getting all the records. So it might return more than one registration object. So again, collection. So if you want to get more than one object, then you have to store it in a collection or array. But obviously, collection is a better choice. So that's why once you do query.list, it will return the list of registration object. You can iterate it, okay, and then you can basically just print all this data. So here you are getting more data from the database. Array, basically list of registration object. Internally, Hibernate is doing everything for us. The whatever the like complex code, like iterating and then repetitive code, basically. Sometimes somebody asks you that, can we execute directly SQL queries using Hibernate? Yes. Can we execute the store procedure? Yes. So everything basically you can do using Hibernate. Session.create SQL query. You can see like here SQL, and this was only create query. So here you can pass this SQL query. Only disadvantage with this one is I'm not sure whether this code has been enhanced by the Hibernate. So if you find something, let me know. So Hibernate will not create directly registration object for you. Instead, it will return list of objects. Once you you do SQL query.list, it will basically return list of objects, and then you have to create objects by yourself, like this new object. But I'm not 100% sure that this might have changed in the later version. So if you find something, I will change this code later. Okay, so this was the disadvantage, but the main thing is here, like somebody asked you, can we execute SQL query, base SQL queries, right? Using Hibernate? Yes, we can do that. Okay, so this is the basics of Hibernate, like how to insert the record, like all CRUD operations, and then how Hibernate is helping us. So at the end of the day, it's objects. You are dealing with objects, inserting the object, retrieving the object, simple, and deleting the object. So once you delete the object, same thing, session.delete method, and you pass the object, persistent object. If it is a transient object, it doesn't make any sense to delete, right? Because transient object is not there in database. So these are complete CRUD. Any questions so far? This is basic Hibernate. Any question? Okay, so now, as we know that there are complexities when we are, okay, so let's look at two things. Okay, so and we'll recap some of the things. Okay, so is a and has a. Okay, so very basic fundamental core Java. This is inheritance. Is a means inheritance. So if you look at the examples, we have learned any of the example, let's say animal or car. Let's just put here car, and then Toyota. Okay, so this is basically Toyota is a car and has a relationship. Okay, so these all are okay. So here we need to understand Toyota has engine. Okay, so engine is Toyota is not correct statement. So has a relationship. This also has a. This is also has a. But all these three has a is different. Okay, so we need to understand here associations. So basically in database terms, we are going to little bit understand in terms of the joins. So associations, many to many. There are 4 type of associations. So this is called entity relationship. This is called object relationship, whatever you call. Okay. So in database also, if you, I will look at the examples. Whatever we are learning in Java, that is there in database. Object relationship, entity relationship. So now here you can see like in association also there are 2 types: aggregation and compositions. What is aggregation? Weak relationship and strong relationship. Toyota has engine, so Toyota cannot predict, okay, Toyota cannot work without engine. That means it's tight relationship. This is composition. This one sunroof, yeah, some cars has, some car does not have it. So this is weak relationship. That means this is aggregation. Okay, so Toyota engine, all are, these are all are one to one. Okay, both are engine and sunroof. This is one to many. Okay, I'll come back this. So has a relationship, but has a means associations, but at the end of the day, it's compositions because there is a tight relationship. So these are small interview questions. Now, one to many, Toyota has many doors, and many doors are part of one Toyota. So this one Toyota has many doors. So this side, one to many, and this reverse side, if you read from here, many to one. So one to one, one to many to one. Okay, so at the end of the day, joins. What are the different type of join? Inner and outer, right? Yeah, there are self join and Cartesian, whatever. Okay, but mainly we are focusing on right now inner and outer. In outer, left and right. So joins are very complex, right? So in terms of whenever you are writing bigger queries, so in that terms, whenever you are writing with JDBC queries, so it's giving sometime hard time to like make more joins, but Hibernate is going to help us to simplify the joins. Okay, so what we are trying to learn here out of the exercise, that Hibernate is going to help us to simplify the joins. And that is what we have seen when we start Hibernate, the benefit, one of the benefit, Hibernate simplifies the joins. Okay. So now let's look at one by one with example and how we can achieve in the code. Okay, so in order to achieve one-to-one, there are 2 primary ways. One is with one-to-one with foreign key and one-to-one with primary key. Let's say we have, maybe I don't know which example I have, but let's take this example for now. Okay, so let's say in our application there is only one way, only one address is allowed. So let's say employee and address is one-to-one. So one employee has one address. Like ideally, that could be vary. Okay, employee can have many address too. But for now, let's imagine that in our system that strictly employee has one address. So there is one-to-one. So now, if I have employee, 2 employee, so now how can I find out that what is the address of E1 in the corresponding table in address? Okay, employee I want to find out corresponding address. That is called join basically. Okay, so what is the join? If I want to find out like normalization, okay, again, okay, so if you have not learned, please learn a little bit about the normalizations. These are very, very basic concepts of RDBMS. Okay, if you have not heard RDBMS, again, okay, relational database management system that has table, row, column structure. Normalization 1NF, second NF, there are till 5NF. Okay, so this is basically I can consider a second or third NF. So third NF till third NF is okay. Okay, so now what we are doing, we are okay. Ultimately, what we can do, okay, so we might have one bigger table with ID, name, age, then city, postal code, then everything. So you employee and address table is combined together. You can have this one, but you have normalized this and then break it down into table. That is called normalization process. Okay, so now and there are advantage and disadvantage both of this particular process. The advantages are there: data duplication, data integrity, so data redundancy. Those are the advantages, and that's why we are doing normalization. And you can see here that we can find out what is our aim, that I want to display on a screen that this employee is there, and then for this particular employee, this is the address. From the form perspective, as I mentioned earlier, let's say I have only one form, registration form. I'm taking all the employee details and address details, and you are submitting. So we are not basically telling user. User doesn't know, right, from the UI perspective, that how we are storing the data. But once you get the data in the backend in Servlet or anywhere, and then you can basically insert the record in two tables using JDBC or Hibernate. So now I want to find out corresponding record. So how you're going to write the query? First of all, select, let's say I want to e.name and let's say e.city from employee address A, where a dot e dot id is equal to a dot id and e dot id is equal to 1. Example, let's say I just want to take one record. You can take more records also. Let's say just full stop here. Then you will get all this one data like this, whatever e dot name and city. So employee name and city name. So you are basically finding employee name and corresponding city name from the other table. So first technique is one-to-one with primary key. So how can you find out the common record? You can make a join using primary key. But what is the problem here? Problem is that while you are inserting the record, let's say you submit here, you go here, you insert the record in two table now. So you have to make sure that you insert the record with the same primary key in both the tables. Otherwise, what happened? Orphan record, ghost record. Ghost record means while you are retrieving the record, let's say, just imagine, let's say here is 1 and here is 10, you are inserting with the 10 primary key. What is the corresponding record of 1 in this table? Can you find out? No, right? Because there is no matching at all. So we have to have some match between two. There's something common element between two tables. And that is why basically in this technique, we need to make sure at the time of the insertion that we share the same primary key. Okay, and this is what basically we will see in the Hibernate, that how we can configure this to use same primary key. Because right now, whenever you're writing @ID and @generated value, so what it does, it will basically generate new ID all the time. So here you generate the ID, that's okay in one place, but another place you have to use the same generated ID. Okay, so we have to see this one type of join is one-to-one with primary key, one-to-one with foreign key. So now let's look at this. Okay, so now this ID is here. Okay, and this is called foreign key. So now let's say in this record, while you are inserting record with 10, just put 10 here. Say 11. So you can have different primary key. That's okay. Now we are not making a join between two primary key. Now we'll basically make a join a.id like e.id, right? So e.a_id is equal to a.id. Ultimately, we need to find out some common condition so that you can find out corresponding record of this table with this table. Okay, so this is the join. This is one-to-one with foreign key. This is foreign key. What is foreign key? Primary key of other table. That's called foreign key. Okay, so at the same time, classic example. One-to-one, many-to-one. So let's say employee and department. Okay, we don't need any other basically attribute of department. Okay, and then we put, let's say ID 1, 2. Let's say we have sales department. We have IT department. Okay, let's say location 101, 102, and then employee. We have many employees in our company. So let's say we put and this is basically department ID. You can put 1, 2, 2, 1, 1, 2. Okay, here basically you can put age. Anything. So now what is the relationship here? One to many. One department has many employees. Many employees are part of one department. So this is again the same thing. Okay, this is the foreign key. Okay, and then we are basically putting this here. So the same strategy, one-to-one with foreign key, is applies here in one to many, many to one. So one side one to many, other side many to one. Okay, so this is one to many, many to one. So let's look at the code now. Okay, so here one-to-one with primary key. I think user address, similar example we have. We have user one-sided. Okay, so this side we are generating the primary key, and this is the new annotations. So this has a relationship. Has a relationship is very common. We have already learned this. There is nothing new. Okay, so we are user has user address. User has address. So these are the object. Okay, in one object there is another object. It's a reference. So now, while you are retrieving data from the database, like for the user, you need to have the address too. User should not be alone. So you are going to retrieve select star from user where ID is equal to 1, but at the same time you have to populate this object in this particular object, like user object, there is another object associated is user address object. So Hibernate basically has to go and find out corresponding record from the other table. So Hibernate will basically generate a join query. So whatever the query I was writing there, the same type of query will be generated whenever you're writing this configuration here. Okay, so this is one-to-one. I will come back to this cascade type later in one-to-many example. And this is the primary key join column. So you are just declaring that, okay, I want to do match based on primary key. And this is you are generating ID. So just remember that what I was telling, that we have a problem that while you are inserting the record, you have to make sure that you are using the same primary key. Okay, so and that is why basically here little bit configuration has been changed. generated value, my foreign generator. So this is my foreign generator. Foreign generator is, I'm saying, let's say strategy is foreign. Foreign means this is the property. Okay, property is basically user. You can basically there could be different ways in the parameter you can declare, but we are saying that okay, generate this, don't generate a new ID. Basically, use the same key which has been generated already for the user. So in this table, while you are inserting the record, you are busy, this configuration will not generate a new ID. This configuration will use the same ID as user side. And this one is basically not 100% correct code because I just put this for like explanation purpose, that always like in address you don't need to put user basically. Okay, so always you have to choose primary side while you are basically doing coding in the Hibernate or in it like with the database. Then you have to choose like what is the primary side. Primary side means you cannot go from address to user. You should not go. Nobody's going to stop, but the design is wrong. So you have to go from user to address. Let's say certifications. You have certificate table, that should be master table. So you should not basically go from certificate table to the corresponding person who has that certificate. Rather, person in person table, you put the certificate ID so that you can reuse the same data again and again. So that that is the question here, that this is not required, but I have put just for explanation purpose. And this is for how we can use the same primary key. So now this is 1-to-1 with primary key, 1-to-1 with foreign key, very, very similar way. The same person and certificate example I have now. Another example. 1-to-1, everything is same, but only thing there was a @ primary key join column, and here only join column. What is join column? Join column is basically based on which column you are going to join. Okay, so this is the column you are defining. So based on this column, you are going to make a join. Okay, so this one as it is, no need to worry. I have put some another way to generate the primary key sequence generator. Okay, so what is sequence in database? I think somebody asked, I don't know whether in this batch or other batch, but sequence is nothing but you can generate the number like in a sequence from the database. So this is all database coding. Okay, this is not something Hibernate has invented. We are just learning how to basically utilize something has already been invented by the database. So sequence is nothing but you just define that how you want to generate the numbers sequentially, 1 to 10, 1 to 100, or start from 1000 and increment by 1 or 2 or 5. So database side you can have this sequence, and then from Hibernate will use this sequence to generate the ID. Otherwise you can use auto increment too. But main thing here is join column, and then you can define a join column based on which you are going to, Hibernate is going to make a join query. So you are just helping Hibernate and giving a proper information that, okay, hey, this is my table structure and this is the way I want to make a join. You make a join query for me. So behind the scene, by using this information, Hibernate will generate a join query and find out the corresponding record of certificate to the person. But ideally, certificate should not be the primary side, as I mentioned earlier. So what should be the primary side? Person. So person has a similar thing. Person has certificate. Okay, so certificate side, you don't need to put like person, because we should not go from certificate to person. We always need to go from person to certificate. Okay, so this is 1-to-1 with foreign key. Now standard example which I have explained, employee and department, 1-to-1, 1-to-many, 1-to-many and many-to-one, right? So both the side, 1-to-many, many-to-one. And this is the same way, join column, no difference at all. Okay, 1-to-many here. I will explain you this one now by running the code. So now as we know, like here you see set, this is the change here. Okay, in this department has many employee. Other in one-to-one we are using join column. Yes, that is okay. But here only here difference is that this is one-to-many and one-to-many plus join column. There we had one-to-one with join column. Now here is one-to-many with join column. I explained the same thing here. Right? There is a join column here. This is department underscore ID. And same way one-to-one with foreign key. Here A underscore ID. No difference here. But here we are expecting more than one record. So one department can have more than one employee. And that's why Hibernate will populate more than one employee, create more than one employee objects and put it in a set or list, any collection you can put here, and then it will give you the data. So now couple of things we need to understand here: cascade type and fetch type, lazy and eager. Okay, so there are two ways you can fetch the data. Let's open the code first and then we'll see. I think one file has been deleted. So okay, that's fine. So I will take a code from can you guys share the code like for test one to many anyone like from the older project? Last time anybody has imported the old project or Hibernate? Because I have deleted one file here. Test one to many insertion basically. Can you share the combined file from the last project? So I'll first explain the insertion and then I will go to, because I want to explain here a little bit. Anybody has that?
Sir, share code or share screen?
Yeah, just share me that file completely.
Okay.
I think in Zoom chat you can share. That's okay.
Can you tell me the file name, sir?
Taste one too many. There is one file called taste one too many. Did you find it?
Yeah, file it, but I'm not able to attach the file.
Yeah, there is an option file there in a chat. Go to chat. There is an option just bottom. There are three options.
It says it is restricted by the admin.
Where is
Yeah.
it? Just paste the code there. I'll just take it.
Now it says it's too long.
Where is it? Okay, let me. I don't know how to unrestrict it. Okay, you send me an email. That's okay. Okay, so meanwhile, we'll go to insertion. Let's look at the. I have some record, I guess already some. Okay, so I'll have some record in the department. Okay, and I have some record in. Okay, so basically we have 4 records in employee table and a few records, 2 department. Okay, we have 2 department. I think I have given both the name as a sales. That is wrong, but that's okay now. So I have 29 and 37. Okay, so let's go by that number ID. So we have 29 and 37, 2 department, and correspondingly we have 4 employees. 2 employees belongs to basically 29 department and 2 employees in 37 department. So let's try to imagine one scenario. I have a application for a CRM system or anything, let's say employee record. Okay, first of all, department. So you basically get department. Okay, so first of all, it will basically in the table, it will display all the department. This is online. Okay, this web screen. And then you have ID 1, 2, 3, all department, and then you have here maybe you have add, update, or maybe you have another option here, add employee. Okay, so first of all, you retrieve the department, and let's say one department, one number has 10,000 employee. So while you are basically loading this page, do we need to load 10,000 employee on the screen? While we are loading the screen, first, how we are going, let's say first department, you will list down 10 departments in any organization or anywhere. Do we need to load employees? Yes, no, any answer? Do we need to load employees here?
No, sir.
Mm,
No, right? So we need to basically select the department, and then you can click OK, go to employees, and then it will open another screen, which will basically list down all the employees. Okay, so now I have another question here. Okay, there are 10,000 employees. What you are going to do here? This interview question. If I have 10,000 employee, what you are going to do?
Sir, that test one too many. I already shared that. Can you check it that in an email?
Yeah, code I'll come back. So let's discuss this for now.
Okay.
Okay, so now my question is that if I have this screen and we have 10,000 employee, how we are going to deal with this situation? Any suggestion? Any guess? What you're going to do here? Interview question.
we can divide the employees according to the departments.
We already divided. You are just going through department here. This is department 1 that has 10,000 employees. So what you're going to do here? So you are going to display 10,000 employees here. Yes, no, any solution?
We can ask for employee ID here or no.
I want to display all the employees of the department. So how are you going to handle this design? Go
We
ahead,
can
Virak.
pagination.
Wait, Virak is going to give you the answer. Design, system design.
No. We will show limited at one time, and we will load the other as soon as they click the next page.
So how are you going to handle this pagination?
We will use the limit in SQL maybe if they want.
Okay, but in limit you always get that first 20 record, right? Or how you're going to get the records? So let's say first 10 20 record and then another 20 records. It has to go in sequence. How are you going to manage?
So you want in programming manner or SQL manner?
But we are writing program, right? Program to SQL, both. It will go to program.
Okay,
And
so
program will get the record from the database in sequential manner.
we can say that let's say the number are not in sequence, like we have missing numbers, so we cannot directly say that ID starts from 1 to 50. So we have to say first 50, then we will record the last record, which was, let's say 57 was the last in top 50. Then we will use the other query, which is greater than 57, and limit it again to 50. Then we will store one more ID, and sequentially we can move further.
So basically we are going to implement pagination, right?
Yes.
The answer is pagination. So we need to implement pagination. Okay, so all this thing, why we are doing this? Okay, oh, now I want to come back to the original question. Why we are doing this?
Lazy load.
Okay, lazy is there. What is the, okay, lazy is the solution. Lazy is the solution, but why we are doing this?
To improve the performance, like we don't want to load all the records at once, so it will like we go step by step 2020, so it will increase the performance. Ultimately it will, if we load all the details, then yeah, it will create the load on the server, because if one people is doing same thing, there are also many people that doing the same thing.
Yes, right answer. So basically in answer is that performance and memory usage. So if you're trying to load 10,000 employee at the same time, it's very like client side also you are sending their data, so network bandwidth. So you are throwing 10,000 record on the screen, and even you know that your screen is not going to handle 10,000 record. You have to scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, and that is not going to give the better user experience to the user. So that's why we need to implement pagination. But let's come back again here, like to department to employee. There is, let's limit our scenario now. You don't need to load 10,000 employee in order to load the department. My requirement is that I don't want to load department. I don't want to load employees because employee has 10,000, 20,000, maybe 50,000. So I don't want to consume the memory at the server side, because if server side we are going to store more things, then it will consume more memory. And that is the reason that I don't want to basically load all has a relationship. Okay, let's go to the point now. Perfect, to the point that I have department and department has many employees. So while I load the department, I don't want to load employee. I want to tell Hibernate that, hey, don't load any has a like this many to many has a relationship. Okay, so whatever relationship basically it's one to one, one to many, whatever. So you have to choose that, okay, for this relationship, I want to choose lazy. Lazy means when the Hibernate will get the department, it will not load corresponding employees. Okay, so now next question is, then how I will get instruct the Hibernate next time that, hey, now get it for me. Okay, first time you load the department and next time you need it. So how? Okay, so there is a, we will see in the code that how we can manage this. So in this situation, let's say department is, we have to load lazily so that it does not consume more memory to occupy and load the employee, which is not even required. Let's say on this screen, we don't need it. So that's lazy loading. So let's look at this code. Okay, so in this code, right now it's lazy. Okay, so let's run this. Okay, so let me take this. I have many, that's why it's coming like this. Okay, so now let me just go back and change the configuration. Department side. Okay, let's put figure. Okay, let's see what is happening. Okay, now you can see there is a difference in the output. Okay, so you can see here initially it take department. Okay, and then it does not basically, you see here department, and then immediately it is basically firing employees. This is lazy. This is eager. So in case of the eager, what happened? While it is getting the department, at the same time, Hibernate is firing the query to get the corresponding employees. But in the case of the lazy, you can see the sequence. You have this code. The sequence is that it is printing the employee name somewhere. Okay, so this one, first name is printing. Okay, so you can see after this, it is basically getting the employee. Here, first name is printing after. Just look at the sequence. So in this case, what happened that whenever you are trying to use the employee, department dot get employees, and even though if you don't put this line, it will not fetch employee. When you execute at least this line, when you try to use the employee, at that time it will fire the query in the database. So when you need it, Hibernate will execute the query in the case of the lazy. But in the case of the eager, it doesn't matter whether you need it or not, it will get the data and load in the memory. That's called lazy and eager. Any question here? Anyone has any question? Lazy, eager? Okay, so now next one is cascade type. Okay, so in very, very basic terms, let's go to database and look at this. Okay, let's say I want to delete okay, it's saying that you cannot delete departments. Like I'm just trying to delete all the department or one department, but it is telling me that you cannot delete department. The reason is that the department ID is a foreign key in an employee table, and till the time you don't delete all the corresponding records which has been referred by this particular department or all the department, you cannot delete the department. So first you have to delete all the references, and then you can come back and delete the department. So in this scenario, we have to delete all the employee and then delete department. And cascade type is exactly doing the same thing. You are giving a permission that you, like whenever I say delete on the department, I delete will not allow because department ID is referred somewhere. So you are giving a permission by putting cascade type all that. Hibernate, you have permission that you delete all the reference records of this corresponding department and then delete this department. Okay, there could be a little bit more, but just read it on internet because sometimes interviewer might ask you cascade type. There are different options. If you do control space and then some options will come. So, but just read it, some theory for cascading. So cascade type and fetch type, those are interview questions. Okay, so be ready when a hybrid comes, session factory, session, heavyweight object, and then this joins, and then this cascade type and eager. So most of them, these are the common questions. If you search on Google Hibernate interview questions, you will find the standard interview question, 20, 30 questions. What is the difference between session.load versus session.get? What are the different ways you can generate the key, primary key? What are the different algorithms? Like, yes, some high level questions are there for the caching. Okay, first level cache, second level cache in Hibernate. So just be ready. Okay, just start reading those questions. It should be a quick preparations for the Hibernate questions. It's not tough. Okay, any questions?
Hi, sir. Actually, I have one question. Like nowadays, industries uses JPA or Hibernate.
JPA is standard. Standard means when you use Hibernate, that means you are using JPA.
Implementation. Yeah.
Yeah. So you see here, whenever we are using Hibernate, but this is coming from JPA. You are using MySQL, but you are using JDBC,
Okay.
right? So this is JPA is a standard. You can use a core JPA also, but most of the time, like people are going with Hibernate or IBTs. So core JPA has little less functionality than Hibernate. Okay, so let's do one thing. Let's take 10-15 minutes break. Just take a coffee and look at the code, whatever I have given to you. Okay, and then insertion part is very easy. You just create a department object, employee object, and create a set of employees. Okay, and then let me just take this code here. Okay, so you can see like create a department object, create employee object. Okay, so you can see here employee. Okay, so there are two employees. You are going to put these two employee inside the set, and you got basically department dot set employees. You are giving employees to department. These simple examples of easy has a relationship, and then you just insert department. You are just inserting department in the database. Session dot save department. Once you save the department, it will insert department as well as two employees. So now one more thing here, that while you are basically inserting, let's say every time you're not going to insert the department. So on the screen, like what kind of screen it will be? Let's say I want to create directly employee. So there is an employee screen, create employee. The screen will be open. And then while you are basically inserting the form, it will tell you, okay, select the department in which you want to put this employee. So we'll put the employee there. You will drop down, there will be a list of department. You select the department. Okay, so those department is persistent object, those coming in the list. So next time, whenever you are basically trying to insert, you are only inserting the employee, you are not inserting department. So while you are inserting the employee, only employee. So what you have to do, let's say employee one dot set department. So how you are going to get this department? So you will get the department ID from the screen. In the drop down box, hidden field, you are putting basically ID. That ID will get, and from this ID, we will get department from the database. And this department is a persistent object. So department is not going to be created all the time, but employee is going to be created all the times for those particular department. So first time only you are going to create a department. Second time onwards, you are going to create only employee. So you're only inserting the employee. And at the time of inserting the employee, you must choose the department. You have to set the department. And department, it's coming from the UI drop down box, select the department. And then with that particular ID, you can get the department from the database, or directly you can get department ID, set department ID is equal to 10, and then you can set it. So there are some shortcuts also, but ultimately the crux is you don't need to create department all the time. Second time, one time activity for the creation of the department. Second time onwards, you are creating, removing, moving employees. Just imagine this application. That what could be the possibility? Let's say employees moving from one department to another department. So what are you going to do? How are you going to write code? Just think about all these aspects in Hibernate perspective or coding perspective or design perspective. All these use cases, test cases, just define it, try to code, test it, write a genuine test case, integration test cases, and see whether your features and functionalities are working properly or not. On top of that, this Hibernate thing, instead of JDBC in our application, put this there. Now in our application, sublet application or anywhere, you're not going to use JDBC. Try to use Hibernate in listeners. Instead of creating a connection object, create session factory. And then instead of basically everywhere in the sublet, you just do session factory.open session and then do this operation. So that is another way that you have to think, start thinking how this code we are putting in a web application. Okay, so let's take 10-15 minutes break, then we'll continue with the many to many, and then little bit about the easy relationship. Okay, so we have some one blog in our website too for the easy relationship. So if you search on our website, there is a blog for the easy relationship. So I will give you that examples and I will show you a little bit that how we can how Hibernate is helping us to write the code with the easy relationship and insertion and retrieval of the records. And that is the last topic. Okay, so next topic is many to many. So let's just try to understand the use case. Many students are part of many meeting. Many meetings has many students. Okay, that's why we both the side is many to many. Let's try to solve this problem using primary key, foreign key concept. It's the same thing, one to many we have been doing so far. Meeting type or meeting location, you can put location, and then you can put, let's say, student underscore ID. We don't need this column. Let's just put this. Okay, let's say we have 4 IDs, but student are only 2. Why? Because let's say student 1 is part of many meeting. So how we are going to define meeting ID 1, meeting ID 3. Let's say we have 1, 3. Okay, so now 2 is part of 1 as well as 3. So there is a, you can see here, there is a data duplications here. Okay, and this side, let's say M1 meeting name M2, and then let's say M3 and M4. So now again I have to put M1 and M3. Reason is that in M1 and M2 there are, M1 is basically, it's a student, this is student ID. Okay, it's a student ID 1, and then for M1 again there is a student ID 2, like this is student ID 2, and then M3 we have student ID 1 as well as 2. So you can see here also there is a data duplication. So in nutshell, what I'm trying to explain is that whenever there is a many to many relationship, you cannot solve using these tactics, primary key, foreign key. So in that case, what we are going to do, we are going to have concept of mapping table. Let's say I have two meeting only, M1, M2, location is 101, 102, and I have 4 students. Okay, and then this is mapping table. So ID, S underscore ID, and M underscore ID. So I can put many combination. Let's say student ID 1. Okay, so this comes here, and meeting ID will come here. So let's say student ID 1 is part of meeting 1 and 2 both, and then student 3 is part of meeting 1. So you can just put IDs and populate this table, and then from this table you can get, okay, how many students are part of meeting number 1. You can find out, okay, from this meeting select from, like you can make a join between these 3 tables. First you get the student IDs 1 and 3. You have meeting ID already 1, you are telling you have student ID are 3, so 1 and 3. So you can connect here and get the name S1 and S3. And for the meeting information, you can connect here this table and get it. So there is no data duplication. Let's say tomorrow this meeting has been changed from 101 to 105 room number. Then you just need to update one record. Here what happened? You have to update many rows, many data. So that's why there is a data duplication, data redundancy, integrity. There are different problems of the database is here in this design. So now how Hibernate is going to help us in these examples. So many to many, if you run this code, I have 2 meetings and 2 students. Students 1 get meetings. Okay, this is a code, but I will go to the configuration. And you are saying that student 1 is part of meeting 1 and 2. Student 2 is part of meeting 1, and then you are just saving student 1 and student 2. So let's look at the configuration, students and meetings. Everything is same. Only thing here is many to many. And instead of join column, like join column is inside, but you ought to use join table, the mapping table. And then you say, the mapping table name is this one. I have 2 columns, student ID and meeting ID. There are 2 join columns. And student has many meeting. If you go other side, meeting has many students. So both the side there is a set. Why? Both the side many to many. If there was a one to many, that or the many side there was a list or set, but here both the side many. That means both the side you have a set, and then here you will get like this is a shortcut. Okay, map by meetings. So if you don't want to write everything here, then you can just put map by meetings, and then this is map by meetings. So these configurations you don't need to write again. You just put a shortcut here, map many to many, map by meeting. So this is a shortcut. So only one place you need to change the configuration. So let me just remove the tables. I have 3 tables have been created here. Okay, so just if you guys face the same issue, then let's just try to add the configuration here. Look at the error. Okay, so when you get the error, let's try to look at that. Okay, so there are so many database queries have been fired. So let's look at this. Let's refresh the tables. Students, student, and then meeting, and then student underscore meeting. Students. Oh, it's not. Check. Just try one more time. Okay, it's there. I don't know what is the issue. If you guys face the issue, let me know. We'll help you out. So let me just do that again. Let me just delete all, remove all this. Let's go to student first. Okay, so we have two students. Sergey. Okay, so we have put from the code. Sergey. There are two students we have created. Those you have inserted in the student table. Then you will go to meeting. Okay, so there are two meetings: weekly meeting, quarterly meeting. Here, quarterly and weekly. Now, third table, we have not created any table, but Hibernate has created for us student ID, meeting ID. So 45, okay, it's a student ID. So 45 means Sergey. So Sergey is part of two meeting, 46, 47. So what is 46, 47, 46, 47? These are the two meetings. So these are the IDs, okay, primary keys. And the same explanation here we have used at the time of Hibernate is helping us to create a table, do the proper mapping and do the insertion for us. So this is many to many. Any question here? Anyone has any question? Okay, so object lifecycle. I already mentioned this, but let's quickly refresh it. So when you create a new instance of an entity, that means it's transient state. When you do save or update, only update, then it will become persistent object. At the same time, when you do get and load, also it become persistent object. When you do close session, so I think out of these 4 we have covered close. You can just look at if required detach and everything. So detach means it will detach the entity or a particular object from the session. So persistent state to detach state. Detach means the object is no longer representing any row in the database. Again, if you do on the same object save or update or merge or anything, that like these 2 operations we have covered. Merge sometimes it's required, but I have used very rare. So you can basically say that once when you do any detach object, if you want to make it again persistent object, you can just do this 1 or 2 operations. Delete, remove state, and at the end of the day, it's garbage collected. Okay, so this is the life cycle of an object, hybrid object. You can just search on Google hybrid object lifecycle and just go there, any of this diagram, and then read it. Now let's look at the inheritance strategies. So on our website, there are 3 strategies for the inheritance. So as let me just open one of this Hibernate table per concrete class, table per subclass. Okay, let's look at this very basic strategies. So Hibernate, let's say you are going to create, let's say, hierarchies, let's say person and then employee, easy relationship. So person, employee is extending person. Employee is extending person. It could be possible that you, other than employee, you have student, also extending person, or owner, businessman, also extending person. So you have different objects, classes. So it's a hierarchy, like car, Toyota, Camry, or maybe Honda side you can go, and then you can have different class hierarchies is there. So how you in the inheritance, what happened there? Common columns you're going to put in the parent, and whatever uncommon, like there is something is not common across the board, you are putting in a specific class. So that is called inheritance, reusability purpose. So how can we use Hibernate? So this is not like very important, but if I don't cover this, sometimes if somebody asks you in the interview, you should not be blank. So let's say parent class. Okay, so the parent class is a person. So you are putting person ID, first name, last name. So generated ID generated, well, all the configuration you are putting in parent or some common columns. And in child, you are just putting directly like joining date for the employee, department name. But here you have to put and entity and then table, and then there's a strategy. Let me, so discriminator value, we're going to put E. Okay, and here you have inheritance strategy. Okay, so single table. So here we have defined that we are going to use inheritance strategy as single table. Some discriminator means there is a column. Discriminator column means, let's say you are inserting the record in the database, person record in the same table, employee record in the same table, owner record in the same table. Then how can you identify whether while you Hibernate is retrieve the object from the database, select star from this table name where ID is equal to 10. So how can Hibernate will identify that whether I need to create employee object or owner object or student object at the time of the retrieval, right? Insertion time is very easy. Let's say you just define like a discriminator, and discriminator is the way to identify that what you are inserting. So for this one, discriminator is E. like let's look at the database record. Okay, so let's say 1. Okay, so this is P discriminator person. If you're inserting person, that means it's P. If you are inserting employee, E. If you are inserting owner, then you can put O. If you're inserting students, then put a discriminator as S. So while Hibernate is helping you out to retrieval the object, then it will create a right object for you retrieval time based on this discriminator. Okay, so there are 3 strategies basically. So this is the one strategy that create one table per hierarchy, inheritance hierarchy, only one table. Then if you look at another blog, this blog is there on our website, so you can look at there. Table per subclass. So let's look at what this strategy is saying. Directly insertion, I will show you, like I'm interested in database table only. Yeah, I think this is half, but okay, that's fine. I have to correct it. So here what happened that you have person, employee and owner. So you can see table strategy name is table per subclass. And you can see here, we have person, in the person we have ID, first name and last name. So you look at this, first name and last name is not repeating in these tables, employee and owner. First name and last name is not repeating. So what you're going to do, first name and last name will insert in this table, and then corresponding employee columns are going to insert in this table and honor record in this table. So while Hibernate is retrieved the, let's say I want employee record with employee ID 10. So what Hibernate is going to do, again, this is primary key join column. Okay, so again, what Hibernate has to do, Hibernate has to make a join between employee and person. Then only you will get the complete employee record. Why? Because while inserting, we have divided that data in 2 tables, one in person table, first name, last name, and other record we have put in employee table. So while Hibernate is going to retrieve the data from the database, it will make a join. Okay, so all the strategy has their advantage and disadvantage. It is written here. What is the advantage? What is the disadvantage? As the hierarchy grows, it may result in poor performance. Why? There are many joins. It will make many joins. So while you retrieve the data, it will make more joins. And the number of joins here, right, required to construct a subclass, it's also grows. So ultimately, it's not a best way from my perspective. And then finally, the third strategy is table per concrete class. So all the concrete class, they go, we see first name, last name. I think this one, let me see here. This one is correct or not from the end. Okay, so this is not correct. I'll basically make it correct on these blocks. So what happened in that scenario, that this first name and last name is in all the table. Only difference is that this first name and last name column is there on all the tables. So all the common columns which you define the parent class, those are in the parent class, parent table also, as well as all the child table. Why we are doing this? The reason is that we don't want to make a join. If I want to get employee, I will not have to make a join with employee with person. I will directly go to employee and get the record. Simple. And that is the reason that what are the common columns are there in the parent class. Those columns, yeah, from the class perspective, we are not going to repeat the columns, okay? Like properties, as first name and last name. If you think from the class perspective, this first name and last name is there only parent class. From the database perspective, this first name and last name will be there in all the tables. Okay, so it might take time to digest. Okay, so but think, take a pen and paper, create a table, draw the diagrams, and try to understand all 3 strategies, and then look at the code. Code is not a rocket science. Okay, so if you look at the code is just a save or update. Okay, so if you look at any code, there's some set of configuration, and in the main, yeah, it's just session.save only. So code is not a big deal here. Understanding is the main thing. Okay, so this is it for Hibernate. Anyone has any question with respect to Hibernate? Okay, so now two things for the tomorrow's lecture. We are going to start with Spring. So what are the what are those two things? One thing is so single design pattern. There is a blog. You have to read this blog. Okay, and the two blocks you have to read. One is singleton, and then another one is Spring Hello World methods. Okay, so this one Spring Hello code is there. Okay, I have attached the code also in blog. In this blog, yeah, code is there. So Spring Hello World, how to create a simple Hello World with the Spring application. So two blocks, Spring Hello World methods, and then singleton. Must